Hi, it's Cara. Welcome to what is inevitably going to be a very long video. I filmed a May wrap-up. No. Filmed an April wrap-up. I never uploaded it or edited it. I filmed a June wrap-up. I never uploaded it or edited it. Both were not super long. And I got so close to the end of the month, I was like, you know what, let's just make this a quarterly wrap-up. This is a second quarter of the year wrap-up. April, May, June, here are the things I read. So obviously I'll cut to the April clip, cut to the May clip, and here's the things I read in June. Hi, hello, welcome to my April wrap-up. Yes, this is how pitiful April was in regards to physical reading. Don't come for me. I shouldn't complain. I read a lot normally. But I'm here to say April was a Bianca Reid style flop. So I read 17 books this month, which you would say, Cara, that's a lot of books. What are you talking about? For me, that is not a lot of books, especially considering at least many of them were very short. So, yeah, it was a time. Let me also actually, we might as well, while we're here, let's review the 2 TV shows I watched this month, which was part of the reason I didn't read, because I was watching TV shows or thinking about TV shows or writing fan fiction for TV shows. Or I did also have a busy work month where I couldn't listen to a lot of audiobooks coming towards the end of the month. So that didn't help either. Because normally even if I'm not reading physically, I will be like slamming through audiobooks at work. But my work schedule kind of got a bit busy, and I can only listen to audiobooks during certain kind of tasks, and I just didn't have that many of them. I had a lot of other stuff I had to do, so I didn't get much audiobooking read either. But yeah, let's review the 2 shows I watched. So of course I watched Heartstopper, the Alice Oseman graphic novel adaptation. It was cute, it was adorable. I did only watch it once, but that's because I was so obsessed with the other show that this didn't hit the same, but it was freaking adorable. Loved it. Got a bunch of joy out of it. It pulled at my heartstrings. I thought the acting was spectacular. I thought everything about it was spectacular. And I will probably watch it again at some point. But yeah, I watched that. And then obviously I am suffering from pirate brain rot. If you've been kind of following me on Twitter, I've been tweeting about it occasionally and liking a lot of tweets. I don't want to clog up everybody's timeline by becoming a fan account all of a sudden, so I'm just doing a lot of liking, but that might mean it's made its way onto your page if you follow me a lot on Twitter. Our Flag Means Death has taken over my life. So queer pirates were really gonna be it for me no matter what. Like I saw a lot of people getting into it. I came into it quite late, I feel. And I saw a lot of people getting into it, and I was like, oh no, that's a show I'm gonna like. But like in a way of, oh no, because I kind of knew coming into it that it was gonna take over my life. And it did. It did. So I've already seen most episodes twice. And I'm working my way through a very slow, full, comprehensive rewatch because I'm writing a long form alternate universe fanfiction. So that's taking up time, which I would otherwise spend reading. If I wasn't currently obsessing over something and reading and writing fanfiction, I would be reading a book. So that's 100% to blame for why my reading took a downturn in April. And we'll have to see if I can pick it up again in May, knowing I'm still deep in obsession, still writing this fanfiction. We will see. But anyway, let's like I'll put it out here for you because I'm a cheat, but I'm honest about how I cheat. I filmed Bookuply Deal halfway through the month when things were going swimmingly, and I was very confident I was going to finish, and then proceeded to like read barely 50 pages a day for like the last half of the month, except on a rare day. And so I didn't finish Bookuply Deal, but I did because I'd already filmed my TBR and I really liked my TBR. For May, I decided to just start everything because you know how everyone always says like, oh, but I started this in the month, so I'm gonna just carry it over and not count it as a fail. I have 4 books I'm in the middle of that are not making it onto this wrap up that were part of my Bookuply Deal TBR that I'm just carrying over. So I've started them all. They're all started. So we're not going to talk about those today, but that's the state of things. Let's talk about the things I did read. First up in the month, I read The Grace Year, and actually I finished this. I did carry this over from March because I was reading it right at the end of March and just didn't quite get it finished. This is a young adult dystopian kind of culty novel that kind of tries to blend 3 or 4 different ideas into one. And I think that I ended up giving it 4 stars, but I think the thing that I struggled with this was that each section felt like it was heavily drawing inspiration from different things, and I don't necessarily think the way they blended together was mastered, and it could have done with a bit more work. There were bits that felt Handmaid's Tale-y, there were bits that felt like Lord of the Flies. And like you could clearly see those inspirations coming in, but it just like didn't quite blend together, and I didn't like the romance. So, but like the grit and the gore was great. So I gave this 4 stars. It's like a 3.5 rounded up. I did enjoy this, but yeah, I think it just didn't quite fully get what it was trying to do as a whole. It had these little elements that were doing different things, and I don't think it quite came together, but I had a good time with it overall. 4 stars, 3.5 rounded up. Then I listened to One for All by Lily Lainoff. This is a Three Musketeers retelling, and is gender bent, I guess, with following a daughter of musketeers who has pots, though it's not labeled pots on screen. Is it Polly? No, postural orthopedic tachycardic syndrome, something like that, and which is basically like your blood pressure goes haywire, and so she has fainting spells and things, but she's determined to become a musketeer. And it kind of reminded me of the Found Family vibes of like Gallagher Girls, where they're all like working together to like become something, and I really enjoyed that. I thought this book was a breeze. I listened to the audiobook, which was narrated by Mara Wilson, who also has pots, and has obviously played Matilda, if you didn't know. And it was so good. I ended up giving it 5 stars. I just had a breeze. I loved it. It was great. Then I read Cute Mutants Volume 3, and I ended up also reading Volume 4 in the month. So yeah, these are a series of novels. They've got volumes. I can't remember the 2 volume titles of 3 and 4. I can check that. I think 3 is the Demon Queer Saga, and volume 4 is the Sisterhood of Evil Mutants. Yeah, so 3 is the Demon Queer Saga and 4 is the Sisterhood of Evil Mutants. They're both great. I think I gave both 5 stars. Yes. And I love the series. They're a series of novels. Even though they may kind of look like graphic novels from the front, they aren't novels. And they follow Dylan Taylor, who kisses this girl Emma at a party. Dylan is like sapphic, non-binary, but kind of falls into their non-binariness over the series. So uses she, her pronouns in the first book, but that changes as the books go on. And Dylan is chaos incarnate. And kisses Emma at this party, as do a bunch of other people, and suddenly, like, including Dylan's boyfriend, who is a trans guy, and boyfriend at the time. That quickly changes. Things change so fast in this series, but suddenly everyone who kissed Emma at this party has superpowers, like mutant powers. Dylan's mutant power is that they can hear inanimate objects talking, including like their pillow and their alarm clock and things. Not everything does, but things do talk to them, and it's hilarious. Everybody's mutant powers is like the most dodgiest, like they use them in smart ways, but they're the silliest, dodgiest powers. Like by the time we get to volume 4, there's a character who like appears in passing who makes like perfect cocktails out of her veins, like her blood is cocktails. Like what? It's so unhinged, but it's so good. The series is just so good. It's funny. It's a very S.J. Whitby, the author, is a New Zealand author, and it's very much like New Zealand, Australian, British dark humor to a degree. a very pop culture-y, but in a way that's not cringe in my opinion. Or when it's cringe, you know, it's cringe on purpose, which I love. It's campy but also heartbreaking and really rips out your heart. Like, I was screaming on Twitter at SJ during certain sections. I was like, what the fuck? And yeah, there's 5 volumes in the like original Cute Mutants series. I'm at 4, but the spin-off series Weapon Uwu comes in with volume 1 between books 4 and 5 of Cute Mutants. So I'll be reading Weapon Uwu volume 1 next, and then coming back for volume 5 of Cute Mutants. And there's going to be a spin-off, like a secondary series, which is the Mutopians, that's coming out. Literally, SJ is so prolific. It's insane. They pump out books like nobody's business. And I've got a lot of catching up to do. So I'm going to try and read Weapon Uwu in May if things go well for me, but we never know. I also listened to a little bonus snippet, alternate scene kind of thing that's on SJ's Patreon, and they put out like short pieces like every month, and then like a novel every 6 months that are Patreon exclusives. So if you want even more from SJ, you need to follow them on Patreon, subscribe on Patreon. But I also listened to Pillow Talk, which obviously features Dylan's pillow. I gave that 3 stars because it's short. I'm pretty sure it's like the first day they wake up with powers, like, which was skipped over in the original book. But I loved it. Also, this month there was also a Kickstarter for an audiobook for Cute Mutants Volume 1, so which got funded. So we will be seeing that at the end of the year, I think, a Cute Mutants 1 audiobook. So I'm very excited about that. I'm gonna have to reread it then. I'll listen to the audiobook. But yeah, so I went on a little Cute Mutants train. I read the 2 volumes. I can't remember the exact details of what happened in each. Like, it's a spoiler anyway because it's volumes 3 and 4. But both of them ripped out my heart. So there's that. And I'm very excited to read Weapon Uwu and then come back to volume 5. I have so much to catch up on. There's been like 3 other books that, like, other spin-offs, like one-off spin-offs happening too, like an anthology, a middle grade, another novel, the Patreon novel. Like, there's a lot going on, and I'm way behind and I want to catch up. Then I reread actually Mort by Terry Pratchett, which is the 4th Discworld book. 4th? I think it's the 4th. Yes. I've already read this with April from Aprilius Maximus. We're reading as part of Paige's Tearing Through Time read along. Paige, Mel, Erin, a couple of others are reading in like mini series order, and they're starting with the Guards series, the City Watch collection, and April and I are reading in publication order. So we read Mort. We'll be reading Sorcery in May, and this one features Death, who is my favorite character. So of course I loved this. What did I give it on reread? Still 5 stars. It was 5 stars originally, 5 stars on reread. I love Death. Death is my fave. Mort's such a funny character, and just, it was so good. I can't explain Discworld to anyone in a very concise way because it's so absurdist that it doesn't make sense trying to explain it. But if you're interested, the Death series is my personal fave. Then I listened to a couple of audiobooks. We have Rainbow Grey, which is the first in a new series by Laura Ellen Anderson, who did the Amelia Fang series. This is the first one, just called Rainbow Grey. I enjoyed this, not as much as the Amelia Fang series, which I think just like hit my aesthetic a bit better. This was a bit too cutesy, but it was fun, and I liked the twists and turns. It was a nice, quick, middle grade audiobook, and I gave it 3 stars. I also listened to In the Shadow of Spindrift House by Mira Grant, who is also Shauna Maguire. This was a short horror novel, novella. This was wild, but I did tune out a few times, so I had a hard time following along, but it was wild. Sorry, I had to reset to clear space on my camera roll. Yeah, In the Shadow of Spindrift House I enjoyed, but I did find myself tuning out occasionally, but it was creepy, and I would recommend it as a short horror. Like, it was good. I also listened I also read Stoneheart by Katie Robert, which is the short novella between the second and third books in the Dark Olympus series, but technically it takes place before the start of book 1. I enjoyed this. I thought it was a little short, but considering I hated Electric Idol, which was book 2, this was pleasantly good. I didn't have the same issues that I had with Electric Idol. I just think it was a little bit simple, and the plot was not super deep. Also, like, it's the first Sapphic book in the series, and I think it could have gone harder, but it was good. It was entertaining. I gave it 3 stars, and I gave Electric Idol like 1 star, so we were improving. Then I listened to a book I absolutely loved and absolutely destroyed me, and that is How High We Go in the Dark by Sequoia Nagamatsu. This was insane. It's a viral apocalypse, like disease apocalypse, told in a really interesting way. So the premise is kind of like this ancient disease that was caught in the ice. Climate change melts it and the disease is let out again, and it kills children predominantly by basically having like really aggressive cancers, but that like it's viral, so you can spread it from each other, and it causes these like basically like organs doing weird shit. But what was fascinating about this is it's less about the science of the disease and more about the way humans interact with disease and how we're responding to things. It's kind of hopeful, which I enjoyed. There's some pessimistic moments, but overall it's hopeful. But what's so good about it is that it's told in this series of vignettes from different perspectives throughout the period from like the time it's being released, which is kind of like meant to be contemporary, through into like hard sci-fi of like everybody or a group of people leaving the planet looking for somewhere else to live, because the planet's being destroyed. And it's just so good. Like little moments, like I think it was chapter 2, like the second vignette, that fucked with me. Like it was heartbreaking, but like, and soul destroying, but then it turned around into this like message of hope. And each little vignette we kind of feature almost exclusively Asian voices in diaspora and at home, and in these like little different scenarios they kind of link. Like you'll see little links between the different vignettes of like, oh, this person was a side character in this vignette, blah blah blah, and they all kind of do link together in ways. So it's kind of like the Love Actually of a apocalypse novel, but it was stunning, like so good. I was feeling things emotionally. I was like going on walks listening to this because I wanted to just be focused on it. It was so good. I would highly recommend it. Obviously I gave it 5 stars. Then I read The Case for Jamie by Brittany Cavallaro, which is the 3rd, yes, Charlotte Holmes book, which is basically a like retelling of Sherlock and Watson, except they're the descendants of Sherlock and Watson. Like, so they had families, and that Sherlock and Watson were real people, and these people are their descendants. And things are dramatic, and it's kind of like a contemporary rom-com solving crimes, but like the characters are not good for each other and they're trying to deal with their complex relationship, and it's just so good. I'm very excited to, I'm going to be buying the 4th one soon, and I'm very excited to finish out the series. This one was like wild. And I'm very excited to see where it goes from here. I really enjoyed this. I think I gave it 4 stars. Then I listened to a collection of short stories that are, it's called New Suns, edited by Nisi Shawl, and it's all futuristic sci-fi told by people of color. I didn't love this mainly because, as with any short story collection, like a collection, an anthology, some stories are much better than others. But I found I would get bogged down by the ones I didn't like, and the ones I did like went past too quickly. And one thing I particularly was a bit iffy on was that the audiobook was only told by one narrator, which made it hard to distinguish between stories. And then they were using accents. I don't think the accents were bad, but this is a wide range of voices of color telling their stories from like the Indian subcontinent, Indigenous America, Asia, other parts of Asia, like Africa, and it just, one narrator representing all these voices felt odd to me. Like, I'm sure it's fine, like, but it felt odd, and then I then had trouble distinguishing between the different stories because it was all just the same voice. I think it could have been done so much better, and I would have enjoyed the stories I liked even more and been suffering less through the ones I didn't like, if there was a cast, like not even a full cast, but just a different narrator per story. But that's just a personal preference, I guess. Then I read Tripping Arcadia by Kit Maquist, which I was so excited about, and I ended up loving this. This was a 5-star read. It was so good. Basically, this is like a noir thriller, kind of, but it's also very, like, it's gothic, but like almost in a Jane Eyre style gothic, like slow building, very much like a vibe. It's very vibe, which I do not mind. Some people have said this is like 2 vibes, no plot, but I disagree. But I do also like a vibe, so it having more vibes than plot is not a bad thing for me. We follow Lena, who gets a job working for this rich guy who has these exorbitant parties where everybody gets high, drunk, debauched. That's the whole point. And she gets hired to be the medical assistant to the family doctor, and the family doctor looks after the son, who's very unwell, but also like an adult son who's very unwell, but also looks after the parties and makes sure all these rich people get out of it without any police interference. Like, we're not calling an ambulance on these people being like way overdosed because that would make it to the papers. So instead we have like an on-hand staff for these parties. She's gonna be the assistant to the doctor. But she has a history of poison knowledge, so there's that coming in. There's questions of like, is the son sick or is he just being poisoned? This rich excess lifestyle and her like inserting into that. This was fascinating to me. I do think the end could have been like a little, the gorier moments could have been focused on a little more and it might have had a bit more impact. But overall, I really, really loved this. It was great. And then I read another 5-star audiobook, which was You Truly Assumed by Layla Sabrine. This is a YA contemporary following 3 Black and Muslim girls. I think they're all Black and Muslim. They're all Muslim. I can't remember if they're all also Black, but I think they are. And they're across America. One of them starts this blog talking about their experience being Black and Muslim, and the other 2 like kind of end up coming on board with the blog. And it's very much about like their experiences of oppression and the way the community is like the community, their experience of the places they live being Islamophobic, but also dealing with that intersection between being Black and Muslim. And it was just stunning. The characters were fantastic. The different interpersonal relationships that were going on were great. The overarching themes were good. It was just masterful. I loved this, and it was a really fun audiobook to like listen to the 3 narrators. Like, it was really well produced in my opinion, and I had a blast with it. It was 5 stars. Sadly then, we didn't have much luck for the rest of the month, which might have also tied into why I was tending to lean towards scrolling Twitter, looking at fan art, then reading. We had a 2-star book, which was How We Fall Apart by Katie Zhao, and I'm really sad about it, but this was so tropey and one-dimensional. I could predict everything. It felt like everything bad about Pretty Little Liars, almost like a Pretty Little Liars remake, which is fine. Like, I hate that idea of like ripping off, because that's not what this is, but it's taking a lot of those tropes and remaking them. But like, I don't like Pretty Little Liars because I think it's too dramatic for no good reason. The only thing I liked about this was that all the characters were Asian, and it had the potential to really explore the ideas of like community and family pressure on Asian children in America, but it kind of like didn't do that enough. And yeah, all the plot twists were tropey, things came out of nowhere. There were inaccuracies. Like one scene that particularly stuck with me and I was there like, what? One of the characters is like, it's implied he's having a Ritalin overdose, but the main character's like, that's a panic attack, but he's like passing out. Like it reads like an overdose. It's implied it's a Ritalin overdose, but then she's like, I know that's a panic attack. Like those things don't look the same. Inconsistencies that just didn't make sense. And yeah, nothing felt like it had a consequence. Like things would happen, but everybody would just get over it, but it was meant to be life-changing, but nothing ever happened because it was this was really just messy and I didn't get it. But I wanted to so bad and I just didn't. This was 2 stars. And then I listened to The Brightsiders by Jen Wild, which I enjoyed, I just didn't love. This is very much a me, not the book thing. This is a contemporary rock star kind of story. Our main character is like the drummer in a band and she's living the rock star life and she's kind of going off the rails. Her girlfriend's a really bad influence on her, and she's drinking a lot. She's like 17, doing a lot of underage drinking. She gets caught in the press, and then she's trying to like turn her image around. It also features, so she's dating a girl at the start, but then her bandmate is a trans man, or I think he's actually gender fluid, but uses he, him pronouns. And that relationship is dramatic as well, but like that's the endgame relationship. And so it's super gay. It has a big focus on queer issues, including like coming out as a celebrity and stuff. What I didn't care about was the celebrity stuff. I thought the queer issues were super well handled. It was really like interesting. Also the author is autistic and I think like that came across, like it wasn't autistic representation per se, but I thought it was like good to see and read. But the celebrity stuff I just didn't care about. It limited my ability to connect to the characters because they felt kind of like too outside of my range of understanding. It made them feel like pedestal-y and I just didn't connect well with that. And yeah, I just was not relatable on that front. So that's like that's just me. I don't enjoy, I'm going to take a leaf out of Books on Lala's book. I'm not a big fan of celebrity stories. It has to be done in a very particular way and this was not it. So yeah, it was a bummer for me on that front, but like the queer representation was great. So 3 stars for that. And then the final thing I literally just finished last night is part 1 of Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson, which April and I are buddy reading as well. This is the 3rd book in the Stormlight archive, but obviously only part 1 of the 3rd book. I'm not gonna rate this because I'll rate it when I finish book 2, I'll rate the series, the book as a whole. But I have problems with this one. Overall, I like the plot, I like the characters, but like, man, did this double down on the microaggressions. It felt very gender essentialist. Like the whole series is kind of gender essentialist, but this one like doubled down on that. Doubled down on that. It like, this whole, the bit that got me was that this whole world, women read and write, men do war, basically. That's the idea. Especially in this particular culture. The prince is starting to learn to read and write in this book 3, and they're like, oh, that's women's business, like he shouldn't be doing that. And like, obviously there's been all that drama of like Brandon Sanderson's a Mormon and he was like anti-gay, and he was like, no, I'm not anti-gay, whatever. And there's a like gay side character in this, or at least a side character who's seeing, like a male side character who's seeing men. And they make a comment like, oh, you should be fine with the prince doing women's things because you're interested in men. And it doubled down so hard to that like rhetoric of like, yeah, but I'm not interested in women. Womanly things are disgusting. Not a fan. Also, this also featured like magical disability healing, which really, like, I can see that it was coming earlier in the books because healing is like one of the magical abilities, but you really didn't need to heal every disabled person that existed in the book. Like, That was a bad move. And also we've had a character previously described that like he's from a different group with different phonology, like morphology, and his name was unpronounceable, so we just called him Rock the whole time. And then we had a chapter from his perspective in this book in which it's made clear that like his name is written down, and it just has a kina, like it's vaguely Polynesian looking. Like it's obviously, I'm sure it's not an actual Polynesian word, but it's like obviously inspired by Polynesian writing. Like that's not Polynesian languages tend to be phonetic. Like that's not unpronounceable. Like why did we have to have that microaggression, really? Like made me very uncomfortable for that chapter. Yeah, I don't know, just, and that was the character that they don't even call him by his name because his name is unpronounceable. Ick. Anyway, I'm not rating this, but I'll rate part 2 when I get to it, so I'll probably discuss those issues again in next month's wrap up once I've read book 2, so part 2, keep an eye out for that. I'm literally only 50 pages into part 2, like I've barely started. Yeah, those are the books that I read in the month of May. Yeah, that's it. So I'm excited to renew my reading in May, hopefully actually get a decent amount of reading done, despite also still going to be writing fanfiction and only thinking about queer pirates. But yeah, hi, welcome to a new layout. That light is, we're just gonna roll with it. I'm still working out how I'm gonna do all this for you, but welcome to my new house. And then we'll quickly talk about the not that many books I read in May, but we'll chat about them. I'll tell you a little bit about my thoughts. Actually, we need some more light. Ta-da! We'll chat about them and what I thought of them today, and then yes, this will be a long video, but really I've read like nothing in May. Not actually nothing. I read a bit, but not a lot. I spent many a time doing nothing because we were moving house. So yeah, let's get started. In May I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 things, quite a few of which were audiobooks. So the first thing I read in the month was Queen of the Tiles by Hannah Alcaf. This is a YA murder mystery set at a Scrabble tournament. I thought this was so cool. This was so fun. It had a focus on OCD and anxiety, and those things were really well handled in my opinion. I thought it was really well done. PTSD, anxiety as well. It's just really thoughtful, carefully handled. The mystery was perhaps maybe a little simplistic, but it was a YA, so it was context appropriate. And I loved it. I gave it 5 stars. Then after that I read A Snake Falls to Earth by Darcy Little Badger. This is Darcy's second book, and it follows a Lipan, girl named Nina, and her family's stories of these animal people. In particular, we also follow Ollie, who is a cottonmouth snake, and this was gorgeous. Pacing wise, I totally understand why it was paced this way, and I wouldn't change it, but it did mean it was a bit slow for me, and I had a hard time feeling continually engaged with the story. But that's a me thing, not a book thing. It's told in like traditional Lipan style storytelling, so I don't want to change it at all. But it did mean I had a hard time getting through it, as in like it took a long time to read, but I enjoyed my journey through this. I gave it 4 stars. Then I listened to a couple more audiobooks. The first one is Our Way Back to Always by Nina Moreno. This is another cute YA contemporary. Honestly, at this point, my biggest fault of this book is that it didn't stick with me very much compared to her first book. I enjoyed it, but and I gave it 4 stars when I initially read it, but it hasn't stuck with me very well. It is a fun contemporary. I had a good time reading it. I would recommend Nina Moreno's books if you're looking for fun contemporary, and they feature Latino authors, Latino characters. So yeah, this is a second chance romance too, I believe, from memory. Then I listened to Witchlings by Clarabelle A. Ortega, which is another Latinx inspired, just flat out story. This one is a middle grade, and we're following a group of, like, a community of witches, and our main character gets sorted kind of into this coven, hijexy, that are kind of like the outcasts, and they have to solve a quest to become real witches. It's a lot about like oppression and how communities hold each other back and hold each other down, and I really enjoyed this as well. It was 4 stars. It was like very, very good for a middle grade. Then I read Ophelia After All by Raquel Marie, or Rocky. I have watched Rocky's content for a long time. I really adore her, and this is her first book. Also features Latina characters, and this one is about Ophelia, and it's a coming of age, coming out story as described by Rocky. I really, really enjoyed this. I thought it was really cute. I ended up giving this 4 stars. I thought it was really, really cute. I wanted a little more emotional impact at the end, but like, it was really good. The whole start of the month I was also reading Oathbringer Part 2 by Brandon Sanderson. I ended up giving Oathbringer as a whole 4 stars. I enjoyed it. I didn't love it. There were some key things that were particularly off-putting to me, but then the ending kind of blew my mind. So I don't really know how to talk about this. This is book 3, part 2 of book 3 in a big fantasy epic. It was a journey, and it took me a chunk and long time to read. So then I read another fantasy that's kind of chunky. This is Jingo by Terry Pratchett, which is the like 30th something Mistborn Discworld book. This one is a City Watch book. I really enjoyed this. I didn't love it. Something about the City Watch books feel kind of repetitive to me, but I don't know why. This one is about a principality rising up from the ocean, just like floating up, and everyone's fighting to lay claim to it. It was fun, a little slower paced than I would have liked. I gave it 4 stars as well. I also read Galatea by Madeline Miller, which is a short story based on a myth that I am now forgetting what it's called. I enjoyed this. It was short, it was punchy, it is based on Greek myth. Enjoyed it. It was good. I read it for the 48-hour book upathon, which I like hardly participated in, but I did read this and I gave it 4 stars. And finally, at the end of the, not even the end of the month, but the last thing I read for the month was Too Much Lip by Melissa Lukashenko. This is a Own Voices Indigenous Australian story, and it's gritty, it's adult, literary, it's gritty, it's dark, it's dealing with a lot of issues. Our main character is a self-proclaimed dyke, but so I'd call her bisexual because she has a relationship with a man in the course of the book. Her sister went missing when they were teens. Her family's in a lot of crisis, and her grandfather just died, and so she's going back to her family homestead for the funeral. Her ex-girlfriend is in prison. She kind of like escaped when she should have also been in prison, and it's just heartbreaking, harrowing, a story of family and connection and land rights and things. Oh, it was just so good. I listened to the audiobook for this. I really recommend the audiobook. It was a blazing 5 stars. It was so good. I would recommend this so much. Coming to June, I picked up my game a little bit compared to May. I read a little bit more, just a couple more things. Still slumpy, still not having a good time. I DNF'd 2 books, but I had a couple of 5 stars, lots of 3 stars. That's the vibe of the month. It wasn't a good reading month overall, but I did have 3 5-star reads, and yeah, but everything was just taking me forever. So that is that to consider. Alright, first off in June, I read Firekeepers Daughter by Angeline Boulley, which is to say I was reading this for like half of May as well, but I finished it in June. We were moving house, so it kind of just like took to the back burner. This is a absolutely heartbreaking, harrowing, young adult, I don't want to say murder mystery because I think it gives the wrong vibes, but it is to an extent a murder mystery, but the murder is not the mystery. set in on an Ojibwe reservation, and like a little community. Oops, sorry, I'm kicking the camera. An Anishinaabe community, and we follow Dornis. I wanted to focus on the on the cover for some reason. Below the faces. We follow Dornis, she should be enrolled in the community, but her mum's family, not her mum, but her mum's family refused to enroll her when she was born. Her dad died when she was, as like her mum's side of the family are white, and refused to let her be enrolled. Her dad's side of the family, I was like the ones that actually love and care for her, but her dad died when she was like 7, I think. And in this town there's, or at least across multiple reservations and Anishinaabe communities and other indigenous communities in the area, there's been this issue of cut meth that has been causing really bad issues for the community. And Dornis is like finishing high school. I think it's like the summer between the end of high school and going off to college, and she's going to a party with her friend Lily, and Lily ends up being shot and killed by her boyfriend. They were kind of on again, off again, and he also suicides. And this is like this far into the book, but you really like get a lot of build up of like a strong connection to Lily and like the community, and it was heartbreaking. So like it's not really a spoiler because it's like the start of the issues, but then the main bulk of the book is her kind of coming to grips with like feeling like she needs to solve the problem, and joining forces, I guess, with some undercover cops who are trying to figure out where this cut meth is coming from and what's causing these catastrophic consequences for the community. And she's kind of like undercover, kind of. This, I was a bit scared of like how the plot was developing at times, because I thought it could fall into like glorifying cops a little bit, but it never did. It really was a very nuanced, careful look at like the way structural problems affect community, and like both internal, external problems. And this was stunning. I highly recommend it. It was 5 stars. I listened to the audiobook, loved the audiobook. It was heartbreaking. It was heartwarming. It hit all the right places. It was both like small vibes. A lot of the moments were these interactions between the different characters, just living their small moments, but also had this big arcing problem that was really difficult and complex. And it was just stunning. It's chunky, it's long, it needs it. Like I think it was the perfect length for like what the book was and what it was trying to do, and I just thought this was amazing. I absolutely adored it. 5 stars. Then I read, which was actually a carryover from like April, Other Words for Smoke by Sarah Marie Griffin. This I gave 3 stars. It was a vibe, but a bit like all vibe, no substance. This is a weird fantasy, paranormal, speculative kind of story taking place in this house in Ireland, I believe. Ireland. We follow 2 twins, May and what's her brother's name? What's the brother's name? Rossa. And they move into their great aunt's house where another girl, Bevan, is also living, and there's something weird happening in the walls. It's very interestingly written. I kind of liked the prose, but it's very nonsensical in what it's trying to do. It kind of has similar vibes to Kate Alice Marshall, but without the like deep horror that Kate Alice Marshall does, but a similar kind of like you're not sure what's going on or what's metaphorical and what's real. I was very on the fence about this, but ultimately I think it was just a little it took me like over a month to read, and I was slumping, busy, but also like it didn't catch my attention enough. I had to really force myself to pick it up, and that's not good for me. That's not a good sign. So I gave it 3 stars. There were things I liked, there were things I didn't. It wasn't the worst thing I ever read. it wasn't the best thing I ever read. And I'm running out of batteries, so let's keep going. Next up I finished Bridge of Souls, which I'd also been reading for a while, but only intermittently. I was reading this with a client of mine, and we were just like reading a few chapters every time I saw her. This is the third one in the series, Victoria Schwab book in the Cassidy Blake series. I enjoyed this. I didn't love it. This middle grade series for me is like just okay. Like I feel like it doesn't quite, it's not quite, I don't know what it's lacking. It kind of reads flatly to me. But 3 stars. It was a good continuation, but the whole series was just like good, not great for me. Then I read Love and Other Disasters by Anita Kelly, which is a romance book taking place on like the set of something akin to MasterChef. And we follow Dahlia and London. London is non-binary and is coming out, they're coming out openly on the show for like the first time and dealing, I mean they've been out, but it's kind of like forcing that into the spotlight, and their family, or at least their dad, is not super accepting, so it kind of puts a head to all of that, but also puts a romance between the two of them. Dahlia is also I was gonna say a divorcee. She's divorced and kind of trying to find herself. The two of them have a really good connection. I really enjoyed this. It's steamy, it's fun, maybe a little dramatic at times, but like it was all good. It was all good vibes. I gave this 5 stars. It was a really good romance. I also read Sorcery by Terry Pratchett for our Terrying Through Time read along. April and I are reading these in publication order. Paige and a bunch of others, including Mel and Erin, are reading in series order, but I think they've stalled a little bit. We're like pushing ahead, April and I. This is a Wizards one, and follows a boy who's a sorcerer, which is like the 8th son of an 8th son of an 8th son, like the 8th son of a wizard, and he's like the source of all magic and it causes chaos. I enjoyed this. It's not my favorite in the series. I gave it 3 stars. It's good. I just don't love it. I DNF'd 6 Crimson Cranes at 60 pages in because I was bored out of my brain. It was not grabbing my attention. Maybe if I wasn't in a slump, I could have given this a 3 stars, but it didn't feel like it was anything more than that, and I couldn't bring myself to continue. So I'm not really going to review it because I didn't delve into it in any detail. It was fine. I just wasn't motivated to keep reading. So I DNF'd this. Then April and I buddy read actually like together on FaceTime. We read all of Dawnshard by Brandon Sanderson. This is a novella that takes place between Oathbringer and Rhythm of War, and is very illuminating. Really enjoyed this one. I couldn't quite bring myself to give it a 5 stars, but it was pretty solid. It was really good. I enjoyed the characters. It was funny. We did have lots of many gasp out loud moments. And it was a fun reading experience to read along live with April. It was really fun. So 4 stars for this one. Then I read Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke by Eric LaRocca. This is a horror. Sorry, my camera ran out of battery. What was I saying? Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke by Eric LaRocca is a body horror, dark, gritty. It all takes place in an online chat room and emails. It's got some sadomasochism going on. It's this is pretty dark. Definitely check out trigger warnings if like A, make sure horror is your thing before going into this. B, check out some trigger warnings if you've got anything you might need to be worried about, because there's a lot going on. This is a novella, just over 100 pages. I don't know how to feel about it. On one hand, it fucked me up a little bit. It was fucking weird. On the other hand, from how much people were talking about it, maybe I set my expectations a little too high. I was kind of expecting a breakthrough moment that never quite happened. But overall, I really enjoyed, is the wrong word, but took a lot from this. It was intriguing. Messed me up, which is what you want a horror to do, really. And I gave it 4 stars. Then I listened to, which took me like so long, it is a chunky book. I loved this, by the way. Like, I'm complaining that it took so long, but it was amazing. The Bones of Ruin by Sarah Rawley. This Sarah Rawley is a Black author. This is a the same genre as like a Marvel movie. That's the vibe that I got from it, like a Marvel, Oceans, because it has some elements of something like The Prestige. Not like full Prestige, but that kind of like action drama movie. I did watch some Marvel movies while listening to this, and I really could feel the pacing of the action, the drama, the reveals. Felt very large scale Marvel movie. And we follow our main character. Iris is a tightrope walker in a circus. She has amnesia. She doesn't remember much of her life, except she's been with this circus for like 10 years, and she hasn't aged that whole time, and she knows she can't die every time she's had what others would call a death experience. Like, it's not even near death. She's like died and then come back to life many times. She just can't die, but she doesn't let everyone know that, and then some things kick off and spiral, and where it starts, where the book starts and where it ends are two wildly opposite ends of the spectrum. It has big, like, the start and the end are totally different by the time, like, but it has a natural progression and build. A lot of diverse characters, both in ethnicities and gender and sexuality. It is historical. It's set in London, but obviously with the twist like of she can't die. So it is fantastical, but it's set in London. It's got secret societies. It's got too many, I wouldn't call them love interests, and it's not too many, it's like the right amount. There's a lot of people she has interactions with that you can kind of see chemistry, either on one side or the other, or both, of the dynamic. The world gets really expansive. This is the start of a series. I'm really interested to see where it goes from here, because yeah, like the world where in the one book, let alone where it's going to go in the next book. I loved this. It's so hard to describe because like the bulk of it stems from reveals that happen early on, but like it would be spoilers to reveal them to you. It was just really good. It was so dramatic, cinematic, amazing. I loved it. Can't wait for book 2. So I think I may have to buy a physical copy for myself, especially if it sticks around as like a favorite come the end of the year. So we'll see how that goes. It is chunky though, it's like 500 something pages. I think it's technically adult fantasy, but it is very cusp. Like if you like some of those themes and pacing and styles from YA, this is a good adult option, if that makes sense. And then I DNF'd something. I was going to say the final option, but no, the penultimate book I DNF'd. This is the Bromance book club by Alyssa K. Adams. I wanted to love this. I wanted to be excited about it. I really like the idea in theory of a second chance romance, especially featuring a married couple. This is not it for me. The bits that bothered me with the cheesy dialogue between the men, it felt very much like what a straight white woman thinks straight white men alike. It felt really inauthentic. I didn't mind the parts of view from the wife's perspective, but that wasn't driving the plot forward. It was very reactionary, so like her voice felt more authentic, but the story wasn't interesting as much in those chapters. This is meant to be about a baseballer who him and his wife are on the rocks because he found out that she's been faking her orgasms, and it like made him mad, so he walked out, and then he's trying to win her back. And the kind of, I didn't read that much of it, to be fair. I read about 60 or 70 pages. I might have got almost to 100 pages, but like the premise is that all his friends pull him into this book club where they read romance books to better understand women. Like in theory it should be good, but it felt so disconnected. All the men felt caricature-y. I was not loving it, so I just DNF'd it. I didn't want to put myself through it. Again, at around, I think I almost got to 100 pages. And the final book that I read in the month of June, literally finished it last night, was Cytonic by Brandon Sanderson. This is the third book in the Skywood series. It's a young adult sci-fi series. I didn't love this one. It was a 3 stars. It was fine. It's like a 2.53 stars. My biggest problem with this is that each individual scene was fine, but I felt like there was not a lot of momentum or pacing. And then ultimately, when you look at the book as a whole, it felt like 380 pages of filler to have this one major plot point world development introduced for the overall series arc. It just wasn't satisfying as a book. I didn't feel like, so like Spencer, the main character, who's the main character of the series, is kind of isolated from a lot of the other characters that we've come to know and love in the past books, which was kind of true. It's kind of true in all books in this series. Like, you got a cast in book 1 and then she kind of got separated from the cast in book 2, but you still got some things from the cast, and then book 2 she had a cast you were building around her. But I feel like that group, the group in book 2, was better developed than the characters in this book. There were like too many of them. They were introduced a little too slow. So the characters in this, except for like one key new introduced character, I had a hard time like forming connections with. The rest were just all like there. It was trying to be expansive and expand the world, but it left a lot of plot holes, which are like inherent to the problem in this book. But like the specific space she's in this book has issues around like the people there's understanding of reality, but it kind of resulted in like a world building that didn't make sense because it kind of came out of nowhere. It wasn't well explained, it wasn't deeply structured, it just didn't feel like it really made sense. And the reveals at the end, that last like 50 or so pages, were good, but yeah, it felt like a lot of filler to get to that point. And I kept wanting it to like do something more than it ever did. A 2.53 stars. I'm giving it 3 stars on Goodreads, obviously, because you can't do half stars. And I will continue this series because I feel like where it's ending has a lot of good scope for the next book. But I really need her to get back with like the characters we know and love from the start. Like, we kind of can see how that's like some characters we already knew made a bit of an appearance here from like the first 2 books, but I feel like that really needs to be solidified in the next book for it to be good, if that makes sense. Anyway, those are all the books I read in June. You also saw April and May. Hopefully this video wasn't a million years long, but thank you so much for watching. And I'll see you soon in another video. Woo! Hopefully I'll actually edit this on time, unlike the last couple of months. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon with another video. Bye! Thanks for watching.